operational security was paramount as we sought to maintain and sustain the element of surprise. This operation was highly classified so that at H hour, the enemy would see one thing: speed, surprise, and violence of action. The first movers were U.S. Cybercom and U.S. Spacecom, layering non-kinetic effects, disrupting and degrading and blinding Iran's ability to see, communicate, and respond. At H hour, the beginning of major combat operations, 01:15 local Eastern Daylight Time, 9:45 local AM Tehran time, as dawn crept up across the Central Command AOR, the skies surged to life. More than 100 aircraft launched from land, sea, fighters, tankers, airborne early warning, electronic attack, bombers from the States, and unmanned platforms, forming a single synchronized wave. This was a daylight strike based on a trigger event conducted by the Israeli Defense Forces, enabled by the U.S. intelligence community. The first shooters at sea were Tomahawks unleashed by the United States Navy, closed in on Iranian naval forces, and began to conduct strikes across the southern flank in Iran. On the ground, forces fired precision standoff weapons, measured, deliberate, precise, and lethal. This was a massive, overwhelming attack across all domains of warfare, striking more than 1,000 targets in the first 24 hours. We are now roughly 57 hours into the operation. In the initial phase, CENTCOM's focus was systematic targeting of Iranians' command and control infrastructure, naval forces, ballistic missile sites, and intelligence infrastructure designed to daze and confuse them. Coordinated space and cyber operations effectively disrupted communications and sensor networks across the area of responsibility, leaving the adversary without the ability to see, coordinate, or respond effectively. The combined impact of these strikes, swift, precise, and overwhelming, has resulted in the establishment of local air superiority. This air superiority will not only enhance the protection of our forces, but also allow them to continue the work over Iran. Over the course of the last 2 days, the Joint Force has launched hundreds of missions from land and sea and delivered tens of thousands of pieces of ordnance. The effort continues to scale. This included American B-2 bombers, which again, similar to Midnight Hammer, flew a 37-hour round-trip sortie from the continental United States, dropping precision, penetrating munitions on Iranian underground facilities across the southern flank and slightly deeper. Additionally, Israel has separately executed hundreds of sorties against hundreds of targets. Beyond Air Force and Navy aircraft strike packages, coordinated salvos of precision standoff weapons from across the region have neutralized hundreds of pre-planned targets. As I mentioned earlier, in support of these kinetic operations, U.S. Cybercom and Spacecom have continuously layered effects to disrupt, disorient, and confuse the enemy. I will note that this operation had several combat firsts, which I'll allow at some point in the future Admiral Cooper to talk about, since he owns the AOR. While we've prosecuted a relentless offensive campaign, our defense has been equally important. Across the theater, operations have remained steady and disciplined. Once again, our integrated air and missile defense network is performing exactly as it's intended. U.S. Patriot and THAAD batteries, along with ballistic missile defense-capable Navy destroyers, continue to coordinate and execute intercepts with precision and consistency. I wish that every American could hear the voice communications like I have as these joint operations centers remain calm, focused, and cool while executing under fire over and over again. Collectively, these systems have intercepted hundreds of ballistic missiles targeting U.S. forces, our partners, and regional stability. The threat from one-way attack UAVs has remained persistent. Our systems have proven effective in countering these platforms, engaging targets rapidly. Each intercept represents hundreds of hours of training, readiness, and technology all coming together to work as designed. We will remain vigilant in the counter-UAV fight. And the defense of the region is not ours alone. As the threat grew, our partners surged in beside us. Air defense batteries in Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia joined the fight, proof positive that years of training, trust, and hard-earned integration pay off. I am aware of the loss of 3 U.S. Air Force F-15Es overnight in the region. I am grateful for the safety of the crews, and we know that this was not from hostile enemy fire. As this matter's under investigation, I'll not comment further on this. Let me close. Operations will remain active across the theater and across the globe. The U.S. forces are postured not only to maintain pressure, but to respond and adapt as required. Operation Epic Fury stands as a reminder of what the United States military uniquely delivers: the ability to project power on a global scale with speed, surprise, precision, and overwhelming force when and where our nation requires it. What we've demonstrated over the past several days reflects years of investment in readiness, joint integration, and professionalism of the joint force. As major combat operations continue across CENTCOM, we remain engaged globally. America's joint force retains the credibility, capacity, and flexibility to respond to any contingency anywhere in the world at any time. To those who would test our resolve or threaten the United States, our allies, or our interests, understand clearly we can reach you, we can sustain the fight, and we can scale the fight, and we will prevail. To the American people, your joint force remains steady, frosty, calm, and focused. Your service members are trained, disciplined, and determined. We understand the risks of this mission and the weight of the responsibility that we carry. We also recognize that our families also shoulder the burden at home. You are a part of this too. I am proud today, as I am every day, to stand as a member of America's joint force. There is no mission too complex, no distance too great, and no adversary too determined for the men and women who wear our nation's uniform. We mourn our fallen, we honor their families, and we continue our mission with focus, unity, and strength. And now I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right here. Go ahead.
Thank you for your time. What percentage of Iranian long-strike capabilities are still in the fight, and what is our exit strategy here, and when will it be deployed?
Well, they have long-range strike capabilities, which we are hyper-focused on. The brief we got just this morning, Admiral Cooper knows exactly and precisely what kind of threat matrix he's looking at, the way they might change their techniques, and how we adapt to that. So we're making sure the theater commander has absolutely everything he needs. I mean, one of the things the chairman mentioned is for months and months, even before we built up, we ensured that we had maximum defensive capabilities in theater to allow the president the decision space in the future. So even before this buildup in the last 30 days, we discreetly brought defensive assets in to make sure, understanding that there are Iranian capabilities. As far as time frame, I would never hang a time frame from our perspective. The commander-in-chief sets the op tempo and terms of this fight. As I said, it's on his terms. And we'll make sure that Admiral Cooper and his team have everything they need, not just to defend. I mean, the best defense is good offense. And so we're aggressively pushing into that airspace over that southern flank to ensure that we control it and we destroy anything that moves that would attempt to shoot us. Think of it as shooting the archer instead of the arrows. That's where we want to be. And we have the kind of exquisite intelligence to get over the top, find that and destroy it. It won't happen overnight. This is a big battle space with a lot of capabilities. That's part of the reason why it's such a threat to us. That's why I talk about conventional umbrella to blackmail nuclear ambitions. They were building up this conventional arsenal in order to ensure that no one would ever block them from their ability to get nuclear weapons. So we're very clear-eyed about the nature of this Iranian threat, and we're going to get after it. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for the question. The only thing I'll add is that unlike an operation, a single operation like Midnight Hammer or Absolute Resolve, it'll take some time for us to conduct battle damage assessment, and the targeting cycle that CENTCOM will run will take those things into effect. Admiral Cooper will adjust his plan and fires accordingly to ensure that we're attriting that. He's focused on long-range strike capability coming out of the enemy, and that's a key and essential part of it.
Of the capabilities that still exist from the enemy front?
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say we're still doing BDA. Normally we'd be able to see a singular thing and we'd assess pretty quickly. He's doing offense and assessment simultaneously, so it'll take longer for us to assess than it would in a single operation.
Secretary Hegseth, thank you. Reagan Reese with the Daily Caller. 2 questions for you. The president said yesterday in his video message that we will leave Iran when we complete all of our objectives. What are our objectives? And can you share more information on how the soldiers who were killed were killed?
Well, I laid out the objectives, as did the chairman. They're completely nested. I mean, Iran has an ability to project power against us and our allies in ways that we can't tolerate. So whether that's ballistic missiles and drones, so offensive capabilities, effectively their Navy, which would attempt to set other terms and impose different costs, drone capabilities, which we laid out there. And ultimately, though, this tying it back to Midnight Hammer, the president has been willing to make a deal. You can't have a nuclear bomb. Radical Islamists can't have a nuclear bomb that they wield against the world. He gave them every single opportunity. Then we precisely took it away. And even then, after that, they didn't have that. They didn't come to the table with a willingness to give it away. So ultimately, those nuclear ambitions, which never ceased, are something that had to be addressed as well. So that's a discrete sense of what's being addressed here to ensure that they can't use that conventional umbrella to continue a pursuit of nuclear ambitions. And then as it pertains to the U.S. casualties, that particular incident was, you have air defenses and the lot's coming in and you hit most of it, and we absolutely do. We have incredible air defenders. Every once in a while you might have one, unfortunately we call it a squirter that makes its way through, and in that particular case it happened to hit a tactical operations center that was fortified, but these are powerful weapons. So we certainly will do, as I said, moments like that, as we remember them and we take care of them and take care of their families, only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we do this properly.
Thank you.
Yep. Right here.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. I had 2 questions for you. First, are there currently any American boots on the ground in Iran?
No, but we're not going to go into the exercise of what we will or will not do. I think it's one of those fallacies for a long time that this department or presidents or others should tell the American people, and our enemies, by the way, here's exactly what we'll do. Here's exactly how long we'll go. Here's exactly how far we'll go. Here's what we're willing to do and not do. It's foolishness. And so President Trump ensures that our enemies understand we'll go as far as we need to go to advance American interests. But we're not dumb about it. You don't have to roll 200,000 people in there and stay for 20 years. We've proven that you can achieve objectives that advance American interests without being foolish about it. Now, will we be bold about it? Are we willing to be decisive about it? Do we put months and months of planning into what kind of effects we want to achieve? Absolutely. But going forward, why in the world would we tell you, the enemy, anybody, what we will or will not do in pursuit of an objective? We fight to win. We fight to achieve the objectives the President of the United States has laid out, and we will do so unapologetically. Thank you.
Is there any significance to Israel carrying out the strike to kill the Ayatollah? And I wanted to know, what was your immediate reaction to finding out about his killing?
I think Israel did a great job in the conduct of that operation.
President Trump put a 4-week timeline
right
on
here.
it. Are you
Please.
saying that's wrong?
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned during the briefing, General Caine, that there would be additional troops sent to the region. Could you say how many troops currently are involved in this operation and how many additional troops are planned to go in this next phase?
I don't want to talk specifics because that would tip the enemy off. We have more tactical aviation flowing into theater just based on the time it took to get it out there. I think we're just about where we want to be in terms of total combat capacity and total combat power for Admiral Cooper. One of the things, though, that a commander, he'll consistently assess the trajectory of the campaign. Is he on or off trajectory? And then make an ask of the joint force, which will then develop options for consideration by the Secretary and the President to either increase or in some cases decrease the amount of combat capability that we have over there.
I heard the question about 4 weeks. It's the typical NBC sort of gotcha type question. President Trump has all the latitude in the world to talk about how long it may or may not take. 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 6 weeks. It could move up. It could move back. We're going to execute at his command the objectives we've set out to achieve. And what he has shown an ability to do that other presidents can't quite seem to have the aperture to do, well, I mean, Joe Biden didn't even know what he was doing, is to look for opportunities and off-ramps and escalations for the United States that creates new opportunities to execute what we need on our own timeline. So you can play games about 4 weeks, 5 weeks. He has all the latitude, and I'm glad he does, because there's no better communicator than our president expressing those things.
To the Daily Mail.
I've been in meetings with the president for the last 2.5 days. We know exactly where his headspace is, and he will communicate as he should exactly what he would like, and we will follow those orders. And I think everything he said on that is right down the middle.
Chairman, did you have
Absolutely.
evidence
Yes, right there. Yes, sir.
strike first?
Thank you very much, Secretary. I left my hometown of Sakis in Iranian Kurdistan in 1996. Can you promise that I will be able to return home safely this year? And I have a following question too, please.
I appreciate the question. I'm not here to place guarantees on that, but I think the message the president has given has been clear to the people of Iran. This is your moment. The world was seized by these crowds and then seized by the reality of this regime killing tens of thousands of innocent protesters. So we saw the nature of the regime yet again exposed. We saw many of the Iranian people seek a change there. This is their moment to take advantage of it, for sure.
Secretary, you served in Iraq and know that no American soldiers were killed in Kurdistan. The Kurdish people are very pro-American. Will you continue protect Kurdistan and Peshmerga as loyal ally of the United States? Why I'm asking this question? Because now Kurdistan is under attack by Iranian drones and by proxies in Iraq and on the region.
I think I can speak to allies generally in the region who we've been in constant communication with. We have been standing shoulder to shoulder with them, and we appreciate their capabilities. Absolutely. Yes, right here.
Hi, thank you. Cameron Arkin with the Daily Wire. My question is about some of the domestic threats, if any, regarding this right now. Have there been any concerns about Iranian sleeper cells, and kind of what has the Trump administration been doing to kind of monitor these
All
threats?
across the interagency, in full coordination. Of course, we're paying attention to any potentialities there. This is a former regime, a regime that seeks to export that ideology and try to sow terror. We're ready for that. We've seen these types of folks before, and the American people can rest assured that we're vigilant on that.
How do you
Right
keep
here.
them from
Secretary,
spilling
thank
out
you.
into the
Kind of a follow-up
insurgency?
on that last question. There was just this, what appears to be a terrorist attack in Austin yesterday. How does that change the operation at all? What effect does that have? And
It doesn't change the operation at all, and I know the authorities are executing exactly the way they should.
Secretary Higseth, and one for Chairman Caine as well. I understand, to your point here, that you don't want to broadcast everything for our adversaries to hear, but the American people also want to know what they're sending their men and women to war for. Is there a concern of this spiraling into a longer war? And then one for the chairman when you're done.
Did you not hear my remarks? I mean, we're ensuring the mission gets accomplished, but we are very clear-eyed, as the president has been, unlike other presidents, about the foolish policies of the past that recklessly pulled us in to things that were not tethered to actual clear objectives. So we know. We have plans, we have generals, we have chairmen, we have commanders, CENTCOM commanders, Admiral Cooper, who's executing very deliberately to ensure outcomes that I laid out are accomplished. But we would never, in front of a press pool, lay out how long that may take. The mission for our warfighters, which is what matters to us, is very, very clear, and they're executing it right now violently.
And just for the chairman quickly, I have one for the chairman. You said this is not a one-night operation. It will take time to achieve the goals. What would be the goal line here for you?
I think the Secretary laid out the military objectives, and that's what we execute against is the military objectives.
Last one right here.
Uranium is.
Thank you, sir. As you've said, there are a large amount of U.S. service members that are in harm's way right now. What is your prayer for them?
First of all, my prayer for them is that I do pray for them. My wife prays for them. Our family prays for them. Our cabinet prays for them. None of this is done on a whim. Having been in their boots, having been in their shoes, having been in their flight suits, I know we think about them with every decision that we make and every recommendation that we make to the President of the United States. Those recommendations are made prayerfully. And when I pray every day for them and for this mission, I pray simply for the biblical wisdom to see what is right and the courage to do it. It's going to take courage to follow through on this. There's going to be a lot of noise, and we pray for that, and we hope all of you do as well. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And there you have it. The Secretary of Defense there, Pete Hegseth, along with Dan Caine, General Dan Caine, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, for the last 45 minutes, briefing the American people on Operation Epic Fury. The Defense Secretary and the Chairman both conceding that this is not going to be an overnight operation, that we will also likely see more losses as well. President Trump oversaw those weekend strikes from Mar-a-Lago. The president now back in Washington. Our senior White House correspondent, Garrett Haake, he is live outside of the White House this morning. And Garrett, I know you were listening as well over the last 45 minutes. It was interesting to hear sort of the timeline. We've found out that President Trump ordered the strike roughly 3:30 Friday afternoon, and they proceeded to walk us through more of the timeline. What else struck you, Garrett, from what we just heard there from the Defense Secretary and the Chairman?
Yeah, that timeline notable, Craig, as the president was traveling on Friday to Texas and back, at the time was sort of publicly ruminating on what his options were as related to Iran, well after he had made the decision, in fact, to strike. I thought both the chairman and the Secretary of Defense were much more clear on the military objectives than on sort of the political circumstances here. You heard Secretary Hegseth say that the goals of this operation are to eliminate Iran's missiles, their missile production capability, their navy, and anything that remains of their nuclear problem, to essentially prevent Iran from projecting strength or violence anywhere beyond its borders, and that those operations will take some time. You heard from General Caine about the various assets that are in place and the efforts that were taken to put them in place over the preceding weeks to make this operation as successful as they believe it has been so far. We also heard, again, from the purely kind of military perspective here, the cause of those now 4 U.S. casualties, those 4 U.S. service members killed thus far in this, were struck at a tactical operations center that was hit, they say, by Iranian missile. On the political ramifications of this, the points were far less clear. You heard Secretary Hegseth say this is not a war of regime change, but noting that the regime has in fact changed, is in the process of changing. He said at the outset that the U.S. didn't start this war. I think that's something that will be greeted with skepticism around the world, suggesting that the timeline here stretches back to the Iranian Revolution back in the 70s, and also sort of pre-butting the idea that this could become another endless war in the Middle East, suggesting that this generation, in his words, knows better. Craig, I think that's something that a lot of folks have questions about, and that we're just going to have to continue to see as this develops. Finally, I was struck by Secretary Hegseth's answer to the question about U.S. boots on the ground, telling the reporter who asked it, no, there are no boots on the ground now, but also going on to say, essentially, we wouldn't necessarily tell you if there are, that the Pentagon is not going to be giving every operational detail here. Again, I think these are all things that could potentially have a long tail if, as the president has said, this conflict goes 4 to 5 weeks or more. Craig?
It was also interesting, Garrett, to hear the Defense Secretary go out of his way twice to essentially call on the Iranian people to take to the streets. He said at one point, quote, "We hope the Iranian people take advantage of this opportunity. This is your moment."
Yeah, I think this is a sort of a key break here between the military objectives of whatever we are doing in Iran and the political objectives. Militarily, Hegseth and the president, in some of the various interviews he's given over the weekend, have said that this is not about regime change per se, but also militarily, the United States is clearly trying to create the circumstances that would be necessary for regime change to occur. I think this is part of the idea of not putting necessarily American boots on the ground, opening the door to the Iranian people that if they want to rise up, if they want to take control of their own government, the U.S. is saying we're trying to create the opportunity for that to happen for you, but we're not going to be the ones to do it. I think you're right to note that Hegseth was sort of more specific about that than we've heard from the president, but it's pretty clear the Trump administration doesn't want to be sort of saddled with the idea of regime change being a goal or the factor that's keeping us in this conflict. But if it happens, I think the administration is equally likely to try to or want to claim credit for it.
Garrett Hagforce at the White House. Garrett, stand by for me just a moment. Let's go now to the Middle East. Our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel, is in Israel for us. And again, Richard, I know that you were listening very closely to that 45-minute news conference from the defense secretary and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs as well. We've lost 4 American service members so far. We've seen the images of several aircraft falling from the sky, friendly fire, but also hearing that this is an operation that is going to take some time. Also hearing very plainly from the defense secretary that we can expect more losses as well. Talk to us, Richard, about what's happening on the ground right now and what the next few days and weeks could very well look like in that region.
Well, every day we have seen this war expand. It began as a regional war, and now it is a regional war that just included a new country. Lebanon joined the conflict overnight with Hezbollah firing rockets at Israel, Israel responding, at least 30 people killed in Lebanon, according to health officials there. We've already seen this spread across the Gulf, not just American bases targeted, but oil tankers set on fire, airports. So this is very much a regional war that is becoming more and more unpredictable and more complex with every hour that passes. And we're not just seeing military targets that are being struck either in Iran or in Israel. This was a residential area outside of Jerusalem that was hit by an Iranian ballistic missile. And also, American diplomatic compounds are now increasingly at risk. Overnight, we saw in Baghdad thousands of pro-Iranians coming out onto the streets, and Iran has tremendous influence over what happens in Iraq. And they were trying to get inside the green zone and swarm the U.S. embassy. The American consulate in Pakistan, a similar scene where pro-Iranian crowds tried to swarm that consulate. So when you listen to the Secretary of War and you listen to this briefing, he makes it sound like a very neat and clean operation that the U.S. is trying to achieve very clear military objectives. But seen from the Middle East, with every day that passes, it gets more complex. It gets the geographical space where it is operating gets wider and wider. That's one thing. Also, Hegseth said repeatedly that the United States didn't start this war. That will clearly be greeted with a lot of skepticism in this part of the world because it was Israel and the United States that launched this war. It was described as a preemptive attack with that surprise attack against Iran to target the senior leaders, targeting the late supreme leader of Iran. When he talked about how it was Iran that started the war, he talked about old grievances going back to 1979 when the Islamic revolutionary government overthrew the Shah. He talked about revenge for the IED attacks that Iran and Iranian-backed militias carried out against U.S. troops in Iraq. So it seems that this is more old grievances meeting an opportunity and meeting a president of the United States and a prime minister of Israel who are willing to act on those old grievances.
Richard, we've got about a minute or two left here. I know that you were actually in Iran last month. Let's talk for a moment here about what the future in that country could look like now that the supreme leader is dead. Of course, we saw the uprising there a few weeks ago, tens of thousands killed, by the way, as a result of that uprising. What could, short-term and long-term, what could the future look like in Iran?
Well, right now, in Iran, there is a lot of confusion. There is a lot of panic. The government is starting to fracture. I've been told by multiple sources that the government no longer fully controls all of its armed forces, that some Iranian units have effectively gone underground. They've cut off communications. They are carrying out military orders that they were given by the previous leader, the supreme leader. And since they are out of contact, they are operating independently and therefore very difficult to stop. There is a lot of anger in Iran with this government. The government was extremely unpopular, but that doesn't mean smashing the government, taking its weapons away, sinking its navy is going to lead to a smooth transition of power. Smashing something and hoping for the best does not appear to be a recipe for long-term stability in Iran or across this region.
What are the Iranians capable of from a military standpoint in terms of the response?
Well, we are not seeing the Iranian response against Israel intensify. In fact, today and late into yesterday, we are seeing fewer and fewer Iranian attacks. On the first day, Iran responded very quickly. Iran still does have some capability, but for now, most of the destructive attacks, most of its effective attacks, unlike this one, this was a devastating attack. At least 9 people were killed here. But most of them seem to be directed at the Gulf countries, at airports, at apartment buildings, targets that are very easy to hit. But Iran does have some capability, but I think it is losing those capabilities day by day.
A look there at where the Iranians have struck so far. As you can see, there are a number of U.S. military bases in the region already hit. Our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel, there for us in the region. Richard, thank you. And Garrett Hake, of course, from the White House. Garrett, thank you as well. And again, just concluding that Pentagon briefing, roughly 45 minutes from the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, giving us an update on what has been dubbed Operation Epic Fury, both acknowledging this is not a mission that is going to necessarily be short and that there will be more U.S. service members who lose their lives as a result. That concludes this NBC News special report. Much more throughout the day. For the very latest, head to NBC News Now and NBCNews.com. For now, I'm Craig Melvin here in New York. Thank you for watching.